Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started right on time. My name is Paul Hager. I am the Director of Solutions here at Elevity, part of the Gordon Flesch Company. And today we're doing my favorite presentation of the year, which is my predictions, the forward-looking world that's around technology as a whole, just much broader, kind of macro level. Where is the world of technology going in 2021? This is a takeoff on a presentation I've given at the UW-EBC for a number of years. And so I'm going to go back and look at what my projections were for 2020 and kind of shore up and give myself a grade on whether my predictions from 2020 or from 2019 came true in 2020. And then we'll look out to 2021 and try to do some trend spotting for you and for your business. Again, these are macro level. These are not just, hey, we think people are going to use Microsoft Word a lot. This is, where as a world are we going, and where are the next technologies that are going to be disruptive or have a large impact on not only our business world, but on our lives in general as well. So with that, we'll dive right into our content today. Thanks for joining us. As always, I'll take a pause for questions at the end, but feel free to put them into the Q&A as you think of them, and we'll have time for it at the end. We also will send out the recording as well as the slide deck to anybody that is joining us today. So don't feel like you need to scramble to write things down. We're going to send out all of the follow-up for you today. But thanks again for joining us. So just like all the other years, I'm gonna, look at my last year's predictions and then try to push into some new areas, just like last year, where I gave the same presentation. Trends that we've already done some spotting on, if you're new to this series with myself, would be things around AI and machine learning, data sciences being a large area to get into. So if you have any children, if they can become data scientists, if they can fall in love with Excel, SQL databases, and manipulating data, they're going to be in a really good industry for a long time because businesses are looking to analyze the data that they have and expand even into more areas of data as well. We've talked about blockchain and that technology and kind of its rise, and ultimately, I kind of said that the technology would stall, which it has. Because again, blockchain is where we use a distributed database architecture. So there isn't one database that knows everything, but instead we distribute blocks across a chain of computers, and then we have to get quorum of those computers to agree that that chain is okay. And this is the baseline technology for things like Bitcoin. And while Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies haven't gone away, what I trend spotted was that blockchain would slow down in corporate adoption, which has become true, because while the technology is cool, it is too slow. To wait for quorum means that a transaction would take well over a minute on average to go through. If that's a credit card transaction or anything in a transactional database, those that run applications or administer them know that that's simply too slow to the sub-millisecond response times that a centralized database provides us. I'd already trend spotted around 5G. That was in the previous year. I said that 2019 would be the rise of 5G year. Certainly that came to pass, and every commercial that you see now on 2020 has been about 5G. So now it's, as 5G rolls out in reality, in a more broad way, what is the trickle-down effect to our technology world around that? So we're going to look back on my bold predictions that I had made in 2019 about where we were going to be in 2020. And so if you didn't join us for the last year's session, this would be that 2020 was going to be the year that artificial intelligence and machine learning has a large impact on cybersecurity in both a positive and negative way. So AI and ML in our tool set, the rise of deep fakes being used for voice phishing. So deep fakes, again, is where we are using machine learning capabilities to learn people's voices based on what they put on the internet or just your voicemail greeting, being able to duplicate your voice and use that as a way to spearhead their way back into environments. And we did see our first breach in that which we'll talk about. My prediction number 2 was that 2020 will be a year quantum computing gets used and terrifies the security world. So we'll talk about the positive and negative impacts of the rise of quantum computing and kind of check in on where that market is at this point. And then my third prediction last year, kind of going a little bit outside the corporate IT world and just into where technology was going in general, that 2020 was going to be either we saw the cliff for traditional media, cord cutting, more shift towards digital media consumption instead of traditional media outlets, and the growth of technology, things like esports and things like that. And then the prediction that I should have made apparently was that there would be a global pandemic that would kind of change everything about all these predictions. Did not see that one coming. Crystal ball in that area has been broken for some time, but hopefully all we're able to turn the page on that portion of the story in 2020 and go towards better days in 2021. So let's dive into each of those a little bit in more depth and kind of see how I did on those trends as we looked at them in 2020. So AI and machine learning. So again, this is the capability to teach computers, maybe even just give them example data sets and let them self-teach or self-think, which has a whole bunch of advantages for our security world. And this is what we looked at last year when I gave this presentation, this kind of graph of low complexity to implement AI for IT security with high benefits. So low complexity meaning we wouldn't have to teach it much, but it would provide a high level of benefit because humans going through that data would be difficult to be able to process that much data in that amount of time. And so we saw that in fraud detection, we saw it in malware detection, and kind of predicted that 2020 you would be buying security products predominantly because they would have some form of advanced AI or machine learning capabilities in their security framework, because the bad guys write too many viruses too quickly. And so this is a reason why you need a more modern threat detection method. And here is where AI and machine learning can help us. I also kind of turned the page on this technology and said that is all true, but there is some downsides to it. So as we looked at GDPR and its impact, again, that's the General Data Protection and Rights Act that started in Europe. We have a version of that in California, and it's likely coming to the rest of the United States. We have this right for data erasure about a user. Well, what happens when we're using AI and ML programming that is gathering data about users and storing it inside of the AI database? Well, if the right to be forgotten is true inside of GDPR, then we've actually created a greater challenge for ourselves by using AI and machine learning tools, because they're creating data we don't even know about that is based on users. It's not clear whether the right to erasure would mean data derived from the actions of somebody from the European Union. So while we saw this technology continue to become more prevalent, we are also seeing the challenges that it has. On the flip side of that, we can see that if we are able to find ways to tag and provide metadata around data that should be private, then machine learning classification could go through and help look at other documents, maybe in your network or shared in your Office 365. In this case, this is a quote from a company called Varonis that provides a technology that uses machine learning to take an example document of private information that's been stored in Office 365 and based on the documents that we continue to tag as private, make assumptions and learn about that, about what other documents should likely be tagged as private as well. So we are seeing this tension. I think that my prediction is right, that we are seeing machine learning get used substantially across our technology stacks and involved more and more in our daily lives. But we continue to see the tension of when we let computers think for ourselves, it pushes against privacy rights and other challenges. And where there is good uses of machine learning, there are bad actors that are developing technology that will use that machine learning against it. So they would create fake PDF documents that would shift what is privately tagged into something else, misclassification. And so we're seeing some of these counter threats going along with it. And we see Capgemini have this great quote from their vice president of cybersecurity, that everything you invent to defend yourself can also eventually be used against you. And this time does feel different because more and more we're losing control as we place more and more reliance on machine learning techniques inside of our code, because it solves coding problems. It saves us time. it creates better classifications inside of products, but also more challenging ones at times that we need to make sure that we're wrapping controls around it. Maybe the evolution of that story is this example that occurred in August of 2020. DARPA, which is a defense program that has provided us great challenges around the DARPA challenge for building self-driving vehicles. That is the foundation of what is really the Tesla self-driving mode today, the ability for Amazon to put into fleet self-driving vehicles. Tesla continues to advance towards putting on the road large-scale trucks and LTL shipping that is based on driverless systems. So as we see that rise, the next evolution of that is for our drone fleet that we have in our military, that our drone fleet be able to provide its own self-defense. So using AI programs to teach our military drones to be able to both perform offensive and defensive maneuvers for those drones that are just flying on a loop over a given war area or a given area or target of interest. And so DARPA put out the challenge, which was responded to by Lockheed Martin and a number of organizations that started building AI software for military drones. And we hit a kind of an important milestone in 2020 around that AI, whereby in a simulation, right, using software, not actual machinery, but using the same simulators that are used to train pilots, AI was able to defeat human pilots in their maneuvers. And this is starting to set up kind of a unique arms race around AI and ML in security when it comes to our national security. And maybe the country with the best software controlling our weaponry is going to be a leader. And that's kind of always been true in targeting and guidance systems. This starts to feel like it's hitting closer to home, and our ability to write software that can kind of wage war on our behalf. So I feel like the rise in 2020, both this article and the continued involvement of AI and machine learning in just about every piece of software on the security industry that's being written, whether it be antivirus tools or logging tools and things like that. I do think we saw a significant boost in this area in 2020. Even despite the pandemic, I think that this continues to ring true. My second prediction in 2020 is that this was the year that quantum computing gets used, and once again kind of terrifies the security world. Quantum computing has great positive benefits and great challenges for us from a cryptography standpoint. So in 2019, we saw Google's quantum computer able to solve a calculation proving the randomness of numbers in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. That would take the world's fastest supercomputer summit around 10,000 years. So we called this the moment of quantum supremacy. So Google was first to really demonstrate that. Again, quantum computing is just a mind shift in our ability to use computing power. So as to where every computer and every calculator and every phone today is based on a very logical 0 and 1 calculation at its core, a quantum bit or qubit can exist in both an X, a Y, and a Z axis. So it has a whole nother dimension to it. The challenges around quantum computing that are holding back its use is it typically, in order to maintain a stable quantum computer, requires extremely cold temperatures, a lot of challenges in the environments. But here is something, because everything is related to COVID, quantum computing has actually continued to be able to evolve in a COVID world this year. Because researchers are able to tap into those facilities and not be in them, and their impact isn't impacting the environment. So in a lot of ways, we have collected more data in 2020, and we have allowed quantum computers to just run and gather and crunch on that data, as well as researchers have been able to work from home while connected back to these systems in our university systems and get more work on research done than perhaps they would have ever before. So this quote from Harvard Business Review kind of highlights in 2020 how we are on the brink of a second quantum revolution. That recent studies predict this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is on the verge. IDC, Forrester, Gartner have yet to quantify the targeted addressable market, or TAM. So what is the total addressable market? Total addressable market available to quantum computing. Major analysts don't even have a number for this yet. It is definitively going to be in the billions of dollars because once people can tap into this level, this just absolute change in magnitude of processing power. And as we know, we're going to skip lots of generations. We're not going to be building quantum computers that we put in your homes. We're going to load quantum computers directly into public clouds like IBM and Azure, where you are already likely a customer and can immediately, on a consumption basis, consume this and crunch amounts of data in time periods that were just previous, not even fathomable. And so I think I did pretty good on this one too, because Azure and Microsoft announced Azure Quantum, which is in preview. So sure enough, we are already seeing, as some people say, quantum computing is still years behind. I say that it's taken a huge step forward in 2020. There are a multitude of companies that are engaged in early seed rounds and venture capital rounds to bring quantum computing down to the ability for everyday businesses and to be able to use them. And again, IBM and Microsoft having the infrastructure to be able to tap into these can show how quickly these large tech companies would be able to connect the world to this new stage in quantum computing. So again, I feel like I did pretty good here. Quantum computing is still not fully here, but the ability to start playing around with quantum computing and the rise of it as a technology is definitely here and will impact our business world. When I talked about it terrifying the world, I pointed out this NIST website, and this is still the website to go to. So one of the downsides to quantum computing is it is so much stronger than every computer we have today that your SSL certificate that you use to protect your website, encrypt your email, encrypt your credit card transactions while you're on Amazon.com, every one of those AES 256 or 128 SSL keys can all be cracked by a quantum computer in less than a minute. So SSL is really just a process by which we insert random letters and numbers into your data to scramble it. And we know that it would take a offensive computer that is trying to get at your data just too much time and effort to crack that encryption code and start to uncover what is transpiring between your machine and the next one. So the basis of all internet security and SSL certificates become immediately irrelevant in a world in which quantum computers can crack that code. So we need entirely new cryptography. We need new encryption keys. Our government recognized this starting in 2016. So kudos to them on the trend spotting. It did not pick up until really 2018, 2019. And we are at the stage where we have second round cryptography companies narrowed to a list of about 10 that have forms of cryptography and SSL encryption keys that would be viable to protect against a quantum computer. And so you can follow the evolution of what is going to become the standard. So the National Institute of Security and Technology with the United States government at nist.gov/PQ crypto, you can follow where they're at in the evolution of this. Here are a few other, if you're interested or intrigued by where quantum computing is today and where it is going, the companies to kind of keep an eye on. These are the early stage, earliest adopters. IBM and Microsoft are the bellwethers. They're the big companies that will corporatize it and make it something consumable to corporations first. But these are the startup companies that are trying to bring quantum computing down into the capabilities earlier than everybody else. So Atom Computing is a quantum computing hardware company. They specialize in neural atom quantum computers. They are still prototyping, but it could provide cloud access to a very large number of qubits very soon, is what they have said. Xanadu is a Canadian quantum technology company. They have this mission to build quantum computers that are useful and available to people anywhere. Cold Quanta commercializes quantum atomics. So the next wave of the information age is what they talk about, with ultra cold atoms cooled to a temperature of nearly absolute zero, then using lasers to control those atoms. So again, a lot of this quantum computing requires extreme sub-zero temperatures in order for this to be managed and maintained. Cold Quanta was selected by DARPA to develop a scalable cold atom-based quantum computing hardware to, assumably, if our Department of Defense is using it. They're trying to get ahead of the cryptography game. Ooh, that's a tough word. Zapata Computing as well is one to watch, as well as D-Wave. That was founded in 1999. They believe that they were the first to sell a commercial quantum computer in 2011. And were the first developers to provide real-time cloud access to quantum processors with Leap as a cloud service. So they've viewed themselves as kind of an early adopter. And then we have StrangeWorks, which is a startup based in Austin, Texas. And they're trying to lower that barrier of entry from a cost standpoint to providing IDE and development tools for folks on the quantum platforms. So these are each companies to keep track of, whether you're an interested investor in where this might go, or just how this is going to come to have an impact in our commercial space. Ultimately, everything has to be related to COVID in 2020, and quantum computing is really no different. We're looking at the impact of COVID-19 on society and the economy and healthcare. We can see the role of quantum computing in things like vaccine development faster, because it can handle larger problems with higher accuracy and a lot faster. And in fact, studies were run, and there's published articles where MRIs of brains of people infected by COVID were run through quantum computing scenarios, and we're able to detect COVID-19 faster than more traditional methods. So with way more computational power, we can see the impact and the possibilities. So you can see that in COVID-19, in terms of machine learning, quantum computers were proven to outperform traditional computers in their ability to model the impact and spread of a disease, of a pandemic. So quantum computing definitely got pushed along during COVID, and is one of those trends that people will see more value in as we need to handle very large data sets. My last prediction that I had about 2020 is that we're going to see the cliff for traditional media, meaning less people are going to be watching traditional TV and advertising, and the rise. And I pointed out the fact that the person that wins, video game competitions, are those finals in video game competitions online often have more viewers than the Super Bowl, and certainly more viewers than online TV and media. And that people are continuing to shift their media advertising into influencer marketing and more trackable, more current technologies where eyeballs were going to be, because people watching regular old plain old TV, our brains have already started to wire to turn off during those commercials. They're not as relevant as internet-based commercials, and we were going to start to see more and more advancements in media. Well, 2020 had a huge impact on that cord cutting world as well, and kind of shoved that industry. You can see here, 2019 was already a downward trend in traditional media consumption, but you can just see the cliff that it dropped off. And the pandemic definitely had an influence. I don't think I guessed this one as correct as what this graph shows. Obviously, COVID had a huge impact on the economy, and where people could economize was in some of their media consumption. And so they drastically reduced their consumption and cost in this area. I'll show another graph next that kind of talks about media spend from an advertising perspective. And we think that that might recover a little bit, but it's one of those industries that will really never be the same. People who have made that shift to consuming just more on demand of what they need in their consumption of media, and therefore consumption of advertising, are unlikely to go back. They're, after saving money and figuring out how to shift into more subscription services, it's unlikely that those people are going to wake up in 2021 and be like, I really liked paying that cable TV bill that mysteriously went up every 2 months. That world is not coming back. And so there's a trickle-down effect of that on media and advertising and that industry as a whole. So here you can see the TV ad spending just off a cliff in 2020, from a $70 billion industry to a $60 billion industry. Analysts are predicting a recover in 2021, but you see it will already be down in the billions of dollars. This is just an impact that to an industry that is probably just going through a shift that COVID kind of gave a big shove to, and won't recover in the same way. So again, it's the importance of online advertising looking at Instagram and influencer-based marketing programs, and other non-traditional methods, because where people are consuming media has just fundamentally changed. So got lucky on this one a little bit. I think it was still trending down. As you can see in this graph, it was on a hill. I used the terminology cliff. That turned out to be right, but I really think COVID happened there, and I did not predict that one. So with that, we're on to 2021. What are some of the predictions that I see and overall trends that are occurring in the technology space globally as we look out into 2021 and beyond? So my first one up is that work freedom technologies will continue to dominate in 2021, and we're going to talk about that. And this, I struggled to even put this one out there because everyone listening to this is groaning a little bit, going, "Come on, Paul." Everyone can spot the fact that we're going to be on Zoom and Teams a lot still in 2021. But I want to talk about what work freedom is, what it looks like, what this trend is, and its impact on businesses a little bit. Make some predictions there, kind of beyond. What is work freedom? It's the ability to work from anywhere and still be as productive as you are, using technology as the primary lever to make that happen. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, made an announcement in May that he has only reaffirmed since then. And he's kind of a weird dude, and he was already having epiphanies about work from home in early as 2019. He spent a month working from home just to test out whether that was something that he could do as efficiently. And in the middle of the night, just sent an all staff email to all of Twitter, every Twitter employee, saying, I've worked from home. I find myself happier. I find myself as productive. So I think we're just going to allow people to work from home whenever you want. Didn't talk to HR, giant corporation, didn't talk to HR. HR walked in the next day to like, oh, so we need to figure out work from home and all the policies and procedures around that. And we need to get with IT and enable the technology for that to be possible. Thanks, Jack, for the heads up on that. Well, fast forward into 2020, that is kind of the world we were placed in. HR was thrust into this challenge with IT departments around how we allow a distributed workforce. Jack has reaffirmed, and people look to these companies, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, as the bellwethers, as the indicators of where industry is going. And in this case, he reaffirmed several times throughout 2020 that out into 2021, if you're in a role and situation that enables you to work from home and you want to continue to do so forever if you want, making this claim that people will never return to the office. And that's just had a ripple effect. Microsoft has plans to return people to their offices. Google has plans to return people to their offices. So there are bellwether companies in the opposite direction saying, we are going to come back to Silicon Valley. We are going to come back to the office. But right now you can find picture after picture of beautiful office in San Francisco Bay Area that Twitter has, that they put a lot of money into renovating, that is empty, and desks are empty and people are not there. So 35% of America's workforce is currently working from home at this moment, compared to 2% in 2019. That is another just fundamental shift that has occurred. In a lot of cases, people just picked up their technologies from their desk and took them home, and then worked with IT departments to try to figure out how to, massage that technology to work. So 2021 in work freedom means we're no longer going to be talking about just, all right, we got it here, that seems good enough, you can access your data, into how do we optimize this work environment? How do we change how we do our business? We may need to make serious business and process changes to adopt more cloud, or to adopt a software as a service or platform as a service approach to our world, because data centers have fundamentally changed. So we just made these existing systems work remotely, but there's going to be this new wave of digital transformation that will involve what we call replatforming, meaning we're not just going to do lifting and shifting. I mean, we're not going to take the same server, pick it up, and then move it into a cloud environment because VPNs will be faster there, or remote work will be better there. That's still an option. There might be some businesses that need to do that because that's the way that their ERP is set up for, et cetera. But we at Elevity are actively engaged in software selections and processes right now, business change management processes with a number of our great clients to talk about just how to re-platform, how to rethink their business in a way that doesn't leverage, network file shares anymore, doesn't leverage these technologies that hold you back to certain ways of logging in or using remote tools. Or if you have that ERP that is more efficient for your business that needs that client server interface, then how do we enable a much better virtual experience with virtual desktops and other technologies? Then layer on top of all of that, the rapid development of Teams and Zoom. These technologies are not done innovating. Teams has come leaps and bounds towards where Zoom is at. Breakout sessions, $50 for sharing. Teams in FY 2021 is projected to be able to support up to 1,000 users in the same Teams meeting. Not a Teams live event, but just in the native Teams meeting itself will support 1,000 participants. So those are code levels of scale and investment that Microsoft has put into these platforms, because work freedom means continued need for collaboration, and these tools are going to be critical to making those things happen. We're going to have to work on work policies that are wrapped around digital work ethics and behavior. How much do we monitor? Kind of Microsoft made some ruffles with, I don't know if anybody on this call has Microsoft 365, M365 E5, but it gives you access to daily Cortana briefing. So every morning I get an email from Microsoft's AI and machine learning engine, Cortana, that tells me, after looking at my schedule today, what it thinks I should get ready for. So my email this morning said, it looks like you have this Tech Predictions webinar PowerPoint to give at 11 o'clock. Do you want me to schedule an hour to get ready for that meeting? Because it's analyzing, using machine learning. And there is some fear that that same data dashboard about my day could be presented to my manager, who would then be able to see how busy I am. And there is some level of truth and capability to what my analytics is able to do and give and provide to the business that has that data. And maybe some of that data is good because we have real questions about a work freedom world that maybe some employees won't transition well into that. And the distractions of home, the dog, the children are going to become a detriment to their productivity. I think on a whole, work freedom has caused a lot of people to rethink their workday, their work-life balance in some really good ways. I know I was able to just take 15 minutes in the middle of my day when my kids were at home and it was summer to go outside when they were having air quotes recess inside of their scheduled school day. And that's obviously not something I would have ever been able to do before. But to spend 15 minutes in the yard pushing my child on a swing set in the middle of the day that I wouldn't have been able to do before. So there's real advantages to that connection. And then there's also the challenges that we're seeing with Teams usage going on after 6 p.m. That because we don't have this sense of commuting in to our workday and commuting out of our workday and transitioning back into home life, because it's all blended to become the same, that we are responding to our technologies, and work freedom has meant just kind of ubiquitous use of these technologies and perhaps causing burnout within our employees. So there are really new challenges that these technologies both bring for us and against us. On that Teams topic, just so you know, in the Teams app, there is a quiet hours that you can set where you won't get Teams notifications in that window. And I think it's worth thinking about if you're a business leader, if you're someone who's struggling with that work-life balance, to maybe train your workforce on that technology, on using some of these built-in tools to shut some of these notifications off when you're not supposed to be at work. We all kind of chuckle about, well, we're always at work. I'm always invested. That is awesome and great. And as a leader within Elevity, I hope that our team is engaged in helping our clients as much as reasonably possible. But I also know that we could not burn out our staff and our people because we need them there to help and support our customers. So it's that balance our leaders are going to have to continue to work towards. So what will that 2021 office look like? I think they're going to involve things more like collaboration suites that allow on-site employees and remote workers to connect easily and adapt and work well together. Maybe less space. Maybe our office spaces will condense. The building industry is really, commercial leasing industry has really got some nervousness to it right now. but maybe higher quality space. And maybe we're going to have to attract people back. There was an article written recently that talked about seducing your employees back to the office. That's the word that they used. Because work freedom is become such a popular term and there's momentum towards that, what happens when a business says, no, we really need you back? Collaboration will occur. I don't know about folks on this phone, but when I am able to spend time in the office and run into people around the proverbial water cooler, because obviously we don't have shared water anymore, but when we run into people, we have those really more human moments. We're able to say, oh, actually, since I'm seeing you, here's this other thing that would have been 3 Teams messages and 4 emails and a meeting, and get it done. So right now, workspaces are competing with home office. And maybe to attract employees to return, organizations not only need to provide a safe environment, but maybe also flexible ways of working. It's time to rethink what the office will look like, how it will be configured, and how resources can be shared in order to improve the employee experience. And productivity and technology can help them get there. So technology is that linchpin, and we're having work freedom conversations with every one of our clients right now today. Well, prediction number 2, that one's kind of the easy one, I think. This one is a new area, and it's maybe a new acronym to some, is IOB. The Internet of Beings will accelerate faster despite the serious privacy issues involved with IOB. So Internet of Behavior collects the data or the digital dust of people's lives from a variety of sources of public and private organizations that can use information to influence behavior. So we had IoT, which is making the smartwatches and things like that are trackers on every person. And we started leveraging some of those. There were some states that leveraged the Internet of Things, the watches, the smartwatches on people's wrists to track heart rate and temperature. And in some states, you could opt in your IoT device into a database to help do things like contract tracing during the pandemic. Very few states announced it, less than 10. And within the states that did provide that option to people had serious privacy concerns about letting information about themselves into that database. And very few people, less than 2% of people ever signed up for those programs, which really made contact tracing using that technology not readily viable. But Apple and Google got it to market really fast. But now we have all this data, and we have massive computing capabilities and able to analyze data. We are creating this digital dust based on your life, where you go, what you tend to buy. If you open that Target app, it has a disturbing amount of information about where you are exactly within that store. And it's figured out based on the MAC address of your phone, who you are, and is analyzing and gathering data. Digital dust, how many times do you go to the store and where do you shop and how long? It can make predictions then. So IoT is gathering the data. Internet of Behavior is now analyzing that data and figuring out patterns of life to see how customers interact with devices and products, gain insights into where customers are in their buying journey, provide real-time notifications, more targeted ads. Again, traditional media on the decline. So behavior-based media on the rise. And ultimately it's to, a lot of people are kind of like, oh, well, this is a more relevant ad, or this is a better user experience for me, and that's okay. But there's a dark side to this, right? Internet of Beings can recognize whether a person is wearing a mask or not. And also this brings into light facial recognition, which is a hot topic. As we had protests across the United States in 2020 and really around the world, we have organizations that have serious concerns about our government in particular, utilizing the very easy, very capable power of the cloud that's available. You can code a facial recognition based platform in under hours using online tools in Microsoft Azure and IBM. So it is just really easy to use this. And are we creating digital dust? Is that including our picture? Is your face on LinkedIn and your face on Facebook that's comparing your name to your face over and over and over again, creating enough digital dust that our government would be able to use it? And if our government can use it, can it be compromised and the wrong people use it? Then we have a really serious issue. And I think that to track people's movements, things like that. New York City has readily admitted that they use facial recognition technology in their city cameras to track movements of gangs and other people. And while that's good, maybe for physical security, is that good long term? So whenever we have really neat technologies, we also have challenges to it. Gartner predicts by the end of 2025, more than half of the world's population will participate in at least one commercial or government internet or IOB program. People, you are opting in. You are opting in every day. You are paying for everything in your life. If you download an app and you do not pay $1 or $5 for that app, you are paying with your data. You make payments in using your private information all day long. And this is just the evolution and expansion of big data around IoT gathered devices, around your own behaviors, that's creating this new IOB market that is going to be, it is already a massive market, but is going to continue to grow into a massive market as we continue to find more and unique ways to target and advertise with people. My bold prediction number 3 is that 2021, we will see the rise of another cloud, distributed cloud. We're going to make up new words. That's what we do in the technology world. I think this is the year for distributed or edge computing. We use these words kind of synonymously because we have a convergence of a number of things going on in our world. And so that's what part of what we do as we try to do trend spotting in technologies. Where do we see a group of technologies converging that's going to make another technology accelerate or grow? And so here we have these centralized, we have very efficient public cloud environments, IBM, AWS, Microsoft. These are fantastic public cloud platforms with almost limitless potential for computing. You add quantum computing being added into those public clouds. Again, the phrase limitless computing, I can't say enough. When we talk about now, we have all of this IoT data. We're gathering video surveillance data, and we want to process it for facial recognition, bringing that data, taking that whole video and sending it all the way back to a data center, expending all of that bandwidth, adding all that latency, that time it takes for the speed of light to take that data from that camera back to the centralized data center doesn't make a lot of sense. We can actually take the platform that is Azure, the fabric that is cloud. When we say cloud, really it's distributed software, a way that you can decentralize and just apply in a self-healing, self-growing way any type of workload. So whether that be a server or the computation of image analysis, whatever it might be, we can bring that cloud anywhere. You know, the first evolution of that 10, 15 years ago was just making on-site servers and workloads virtual enough that we could protect them from going down. Now we're so far past that. We're into hyper-converged platforms, and ultimately those are leaning into distributed and edge computing platforms that are allowing you to keep the majority of your critical data center inside of maybe a public cloud architecture, but still have these very small, Intel NUC-sized, 4-inch size boxes at your office that are just running the localized compute that office needs. So we have a technology partner that is in trials, broad testing with Starbucks. We're in the store for that point of sale unit. There's just a small Intel NUC that has one power cable and one network cable. And as much as possible, local processing is done on that server. Again, 4-inch Intel NUC server I'm using with air quotes. But really it's shifting and shipping all that data back, that big data back to public cloud architecture that it can expand and contract and grow at scale to keep up with Starbucks. So that's just one example of how an edge computing device can do something local. And if that device dies at that Starbucks because the environment or it just dies, instead of building these complex redundant systems at the edge like that, they just ship another device out automatically, one power cable, one network cable. It connects back up to public cloud. It redeploys itself automatically using orchestration tools that are built into these systems. It self-heals itself. So a point of sale goes up to the cloud automatically and then reverts back to local once that device is back online, all without needing IT. You can send that server to a barista and the barista can plug it in. We can also do that because we saw that 5G trend happen. 5G allowing a gigabit of network connection, low latency network connection to these edge devices and back to public cloud. Basically, in increasingly wider areas, even areas that don't have traditional cabling in them. So we're seeing these convergence of 5G, of hyperconverged and software-defined data centers, and the rise of public cloud, the rise and impact of IoT devices generating massive amounts of data, and not only just raw data, but some data that needs something done to it, images that need analysis. Again, rather than sending that all back to those public clouds, you can do it at the edge via distributed cloud. So we want self-healing environments. We're going to have increasingly smaller office outposts, maybe because of COVID. We have the rise of IoT devices generating lots of noise and data right on our people and at our store level and in our commercial space. 5G connecting that all faster, and the technology to allow this kind of autonomous failover and self-healing, the fabric that we built our public clouds on can now be deployed on premise. You can literally take the goo that is Azure and deploy that on something called Azure Stack HCI inside of your office. So we're seeing all these technologies happen to converge right now, being in that right point, that we're going to start to see that intelligent edge and that distributed cloud products, I think, really expand more and more because the office has changed, because technology has changed. And so it's interesting to watch which players, and it's mostly the hyperconverged players and the cloud players. So, and again, hyperconverged is really just that technology of using software to create a public cloud experience at your office with hardware that you own, perhaps, or that you rent or lease, but it's in your facility. So in general, it's a software world. We are continuing to grow away from needing to create specific hardware configurations. More cloud, it's just what that cloud is called. Is it public cloud? Is it software as a service? Is it platform as a service? And this is the digital transformation that we're really discussions that we're having with our clients right now. And forward-looking partners should be looking out into these technologies and preparing your business for them. So if I have a call to action, if you think this not only sounds interesting, but in some cases concerning, and in some cases inspiring as you think about your business and your day-to-day world, I would ask you to think about partnering with an organization like Elevity that is ahead of what is next. If you are a fully managed customer or thinking about becoming a fully managed customer, our fully managed programs come with your own virtual CIO that's within my team that helps your business look to the future and to be ready for it. If you're a client or prospective client of our mid-market group, if you have more than 100 users in your organization, we have access to some of the most talented consultants in the market that are ready to provide your business the help it needs to take the next step in the world that we're in. And so, if you're not already actively engaged with someone in an organization, go to gflesh.com/manage-it-needs-assessment. Fill out that information and we'll reach out to you. We have a number of kind of initial assessments that we like to take to understand where your business is at, help you start to create roadmaps where your business needs to be, and then where we can fill the gaps and help you achieve what you need in your digital transformation to keep up with the trends, to continue to reevaluate where your business is at as you look into 2021 and beyond. If you're an existing client of ours, thank you for your business. We appreciate your loyalty. If you're new to us today, it's great to meet you, and we'd love to have the opportunity to help inspire your transformation in your business 2021. As always, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. And with that, we have a break for a few questions if people have any about future of technology and where we're going. So I know it takes a few seconds for people to open up that panel and ask a few questions. I'm going to take a quick 1-minute water break and then answer any questions that folks might have. All right, so the first question we have is somebody asking about, who do I see as winning the public cloud battle? Here we have to admit our bias a little bit here. We are a predominantly Microsoft partner and a Microsoft shop. We feel like strategically, Microsoft is a cloud platform that most of our clients are consuming in one way, whether it be Office 365 that has over 80% market share in the commercial business space, an increasing market share in education, startups, etc. Most people send email over Office 365. We feel like it's a natural progression for a lot of businesses to stay within that same platform of productivity and leverage that for their infrastructure or their identity management, two-factor authentication, single sign-on. All of those are features inside of Microsoft Azure's solutions. We're a managed Microsoft partner and a gold partner, and are able to help you evaluate where your journey is within cloud and help you get there if that's something that that makes sense for your business on your roadmap. Certainly AWS and then Google, who is market share wise the smallest player in that cloud infrastructure game. All good public cloud providers. Microsoft was the first to be out ahead of the GDPR and privacy situations. They are not in the business of gathering data about you and reselling it to third parties. So when we talk about things like Cortana and the My Analytics stuff, that's all corporate-owned data. It stays within the United States if you tell it to. You have all the corporate controls, privacy controls, and ultimately you can check a lot of the compliance boxes that are only becoming more and more. Another trend note we've seen this year is PCI Compliance, which is the credit card processing industry's compliance framework, is starting to dig in a little more into networks. Starting to do internal scans of networks and smaller businesses, and making sure that things like file integrity monitoring tools are in place, that some of these more advanced antivirus products are in place, that you're patching on time. We're starting to see a step up as fraud continues to be a challenge that the payment industry is facing. We are seeing an increase in the requirements for some of these compliance areas. And again, being kind of invested into that Microsoft solution stack when probably the device you're logged into today is a Microsoft operating system. Probably the server that you use, probably the email that you use, that somewhere along the way is a part of that Microsoft solution stack. And so seems to be logical to us to stay within that for most of our business partners. Next question I have is, I had mentioned platform as a service and software as a service. So what are those? So software as a service is like Office 365 or your Salesforce. So it is an application that is running in a cloud. You have no responsibility for managing it. It just is what it is, which is both great. Microsoft Teams just self-updates in the background. It's kind of an as a service. You get all the new features as they come out, which is great. They're responsible for uptime. They're responsible for patching and management. Platform as a service is providing a platform for you to execute code on. So maybe SQL as a service is a platform that you can write entire applications to. And then what I didn't mention, but IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, is that replatform, the lift and shift. So we just take your compute, your virtual machines that run your business, and we drop them into Microsoft's Azure's data center exactly kind of as they are. Still running the same software. You are responsible for managing still the security and updates and those operating systems. They're just handling the data center, the power, the cooling, the internet, and things like that. So those are software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service, all as SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. We just love acronyms in the IT space. I know that can get confusing. That's a good question, but those are kind of those platforms. And actually, it's a topical question because we're looking out into January for continuing thought leadership discussions and our coffee break series. If you've joined us on Friday mornings for our short, no PowerPoint conversation around technology, we spent November talking about Teams. If you need any of that content, we have it all posted on our website. But we provided great content around where Microsoft Teams is going and some of the new features in November. In January, we're looking towards the cloud and talking about can you as our customer go to a serverless environment? Where should you be in your cloud journey? How has COVID and other things impacted the shift towards cloud computing? Has it made it faster, slower? Are people coming back or going forward? And what is the right balance for your business? So that's going to be our overall theme into January. And if you're not signed up for our coffee break or our continued thought leadership series, we invite you again to go to our website, check on the events, sign up for them. We have just a ton of great content that we put out. We just put out a great Teams infographic that you can download and take a look at. So we kind of have everything, whether it be something that you can read in a minute and get education around technology, all the way up to these longer thought leadership sessions. We're really diving into some technologies with some depth. And then the coffee breaks are the great in between, just 30 minutes, more like a podcast, really conversational, certainly more than just me talking. Our whole group of technologists and great folks that we have here at GFC and Elevity to share their thoughts on it. So not seeing any more questions. We're right at 5 minutes too. I'll give you 5 minutes of your day back. Have a healthy, safe, and wonderful holiday season. And thanks for joining us today. And we look forward to helping you look into the future with these technology trends.